Right, so we move on now to our next session, a subject, a topic, AR, VR. It's the talk of pretty much every single tech conference you can imagine these days, certainly. But the thing is, certainly, where does one reality end and the next begin? The next panel discussion, we're going to jump into that and certainly try to find some of the answers. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the moderator who's going to shape this discussion certainly in the right direction. CIO of Luminous Education, Shafa Nasser.
Where does one reality begin and the next one end? Okay. Do you have your heads? Sure. Okay. Augmented reality and virtual reality is like yin and yang. These two cutting-edge technologies are the subject of fascination for the most influential people in technology. They both hold a lot in common. However, they can lead us in different paths. Augmented reality augments the way we see the world, how we interact with it, providing us with information. Virtual reality takes us into a completely different world, the virtual world, providing 360-degree views with little or no sense of the room we're in, and in some cases, we might say some bulky hardware. Today, we want to explore these platforms in much more detail. We want to look at the different angles, exploring these untapped potentials across many disciplines and industries. Understanding why these innovative, immersive, and continuously evolving technologies and platforms are called game-changing. Having said that, let me now introduce you to our distinguished panelists. I'm going to start with our featured guest, Mr. Dominique Escovet. Dominique Escovet, welcome. Dominique has joined us as his first time in Amman, and he just arrived last night from Germany. So welcome to Jordan.
Thank you.
Dominique is our featured speaker for the forum. He's the head of virtual reality for Europe, Middle East, and Africa for Nvidia, a company that has evolved the GPU into a computer brain at the exciting intersection of virtual reality, high-performance computing, and artificial intelligence. He is a VR enthusiast, a keynote speaker, and a netizen, just like citizen, but a netizen. And also is very enthusiastic about all cutting-edge technologies and how they will shape the world of the future. Welcome. I have Dr. Mazen Gadir. He is a senior consultant and advisor at the Executive Office for Organizational Transformation and PMO at Dubai Health Authority. Dr. Mazen has worked at healthcare transformation strategies and digital health innovation at several companies, including PwC, Abu Dhabi Healthcare Services, Saha, Cerner Limited, and Health Innovation Advisory, accumulating over 18 years of experience in the field of healthcare, innovation, and transformation. His journey covered many global organizations in the UK, France, UAE, Saudi Arabia, GCC, Australia, India, and the USA. He's an executive board director at Project Management Institute for the UAE chapter, and he has a post-PhD from the University of North Florida and a member of the AR/VR Association. He also joins us. He just arrived from Khartoum yesterday, but he's based in Dubai. So welcome to Jordan. Next, I have Ms. Rain Gamo. She is the Europe, Middle East, and Africa Marketing Director for Eon Reality. Eon Reality is a world leader in knowledge transfer using augmented reality and virtual reality. Rain is a marketing, communication, and social media specialist. She built marketing communication strategy within the travel and tourism sector while working for the Jordan Tourism Board and World Travel and Tourism Council. Rain has been instrumental in the creation and implementation of the first social media strategy for the Jordan tourism brand in 2011 following the eruption of the Arab Spring in Egypt. She was also one of the first in the tourism industry online to champion the power, word of mouth, digital promotion through the use of influencers. And welcome Rain, she also arrived Thursday from London. And last but not least, I would like to welcome Mr. Karim Saad. He's the CEO and founder of GigaWorks, which was established in 2014 in Dubai. GigaWorks is a virtual reality film studio offering 300-degree content capture and storytelling, VR experience, and customized Gigabox cardboards. He created and produced the first VR experience for market use in the Middle East for Rainbow Milk. He produced the local and international award-winning VR experiences for Wild Wadi Water Park Jumeirah Group. Karim's work also involved production of short documentaries and VR experiences for Dubai Port World, Dua, just to name a few. Welcome, and he also arrived yesterday from Dubai. I think I'm the only one who just came from Amman. Thank you. I'm really pleased and very fortunate to have such distinguished guests with us today. And since Dominique, you're our featured speaker, I keep calling you Dominique as in the French pronunciation, Dominique. Dominique. I would like to start with you actually,
Okay.
and I want to ask you. So, because we know that AR and VR were the first thing that comes to mind when you think of is gaming and entertainment.
Yeah.
And this is where they have been commonly used. So, how is Nvidia reacting to this massive scale of virtual reality in the gaming market, as well as other markets?
Yeah, for us, virtual reality is really a technology that's immersing your player or your user deeper into whatever they want to immerse themselves in. So coming from a gaming background, Nvidia is a company that builds graphics processing units. So we are the company that builds the chips that make 3D graphics. So whatever you're thinking of in terms of 3D rendering, Nvidia has a stake in that. From the heads-up display that you have in your car, a modern car is literally a computer that drives on wheels, and we're making the head-up display systems for that, to gaming, traditional gaming on a 2D monitor, to virtual reality. And Nvidia sees virtual reality and augmented reality as the next computing platforms. We truly believe that in 50 years down the line, we'll look back at flat monitors and think, how could we ever use that? Because suddenly, if you're in virtual reality, you have as much space around you as you want, which obviously gives the virtual reality more benefits than just for gaming, but also for lots of enterprise cases, which I'm actually going to show in a live demo in just a bit.
Yes, I hear you have a surprise for us today. So
I do.
I would love to see this in action.
I did bring a surprise, but before that, I have one question for the audience. How many of you have used a virtual reality headset? That's good, because I brought one, and if you allow, I would try to show this now to the audience.
Yes, please.
So what I've brought with me is a virtual reality headset. This is an Oculus Rift. It's a company that was founded by a 20-year-old Californian guy called Paul Malucki. It was in the meanwhile bought by Facebook for $2 billion US. And it's now a Facebook operated company. And when I tried virtual reality for the first time, that was 6 years ago, and it was a very early prototype of this device. It was literally a smartphone screen ripped out of a smartphone, coupled with a couple of sensors, and then duct taped to a skiing goggle. And even that prototype gave me such a great experience that I thought virtual reality really needs to become a thing. So within the limits of my abilities, I tried to do the most I could for making virtual reality become a true reality. And one of the things I did was I started an online community for virtual reality on the internet. It's called the Oculus Reddit, subreddit on reddit.com. It's now the largest unofficial community for VR on the internet, and I'm really, really proud of what this community has become. In 2015, I also started a European non-profit initiative called EUVR.org to help drive innovation in the European virtual reality ecosystem. And then in late 2015, I quit my job at Rockstar Games, so I was working in the games industry, to go all in with virtual reality and founded my own startup together with 2 experts that we then brought through an accelerator program in Silicon Valley. So in short, I'm a huge virtual reality enthusiast because VR is a technology that can truly teleport you to other places. And the place that I'm gonna visit first is my nice little home somewhere in the virtual world. And I'm just gonna grab my controllers here. These represent my hands. So essentially what you are seeing on the screen, and I'm just gonna do a quick check, yes, is essentially what I'm seeing. So I'm standing in front of this nice villa that somebody built for me, and I'm literally standing in front of a library of games that I can play. But before I play any of these games, let's check out our avatar. This is a virtual world, so obviously you will have avatars in this world. So instead of just being yourself, you can literally be anyone. I can be this green Nvidia guy here saying hello, looking extra cool. But I can also try different things. So I can be this old blue lady if I want. Not quite mine. This guy looks like he's going to a festival. I'm not sure about that. And then whatever I choose, this is what I will be looking like to my friends in the virtual space. So this is literally the way that I'm shaping my own alter ego in cyberspace. This guy looks kind of cool. And then switching back, we can ignore this one. Switching back to this nice villa that I have, I told you that there's multiple experiences in virtual reality that actually are made for enterprises. But before we do that, let's play a round of Fruit Ninja. Well, some people may know this. This is literally the same game that you have on your smartphone, but it's in virtual reality. So with the avatar that I just made, I'm gonna enter this world, and once it loads up, people will actually probably recognize this. My hands are now holding 2 swords, and I can literally just slide fruits. Hoya! What I'm trying to show you with this is that this is really fun. This is the way that virtual reality will enter the homes of lots of people, so that they get in contact with a fun technology that's also immersing them in a in a Japanese Asian world that is obviously just there if you're wearing the headset. But then I promised you to also show you applications that go into enterprise scenarios. And from the gaming world, so what I just said is this will lead to lots of people having this at home because it's just fun for the whole family. And there's thousands of games that you can play in virtual reality. And on top of that, people are using it to make better job workflows happening. So the next thing that I'm going to show you is called Nvidia Holodeck. And Nvidia Holodeck is our sandbox to test out the best virtual reality experiences that are possible right now. This obviously takes a little while to load because there's lots of stuff happening in the background, but as soon as this loads, I'm suddenly transported into a very, very futuristic world that will allow me to design objects in a way that's never been possible before. And the way that Holodeck does this is it uses Unreal Engine, and then there's lots of algorithms in this special version of the Unreal Engine that make this possible. And the main thing about Holodeck is photorealistic graphics. So I'm just going to load up a room and try to show you the Holodeck Showcase Lab. And I said this is for product designers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load a model into this world that I've just loaded up of a high-performance car, so a sports car. All All right. Obviously, this is cutting-edge technology, so it's not loading what it's supposed to load. But give me a second, and I'll just restart this, and it should work. And so what we've set out to do with this is essentially change the way that people are designing objects in the real world. So for example, a car, if you want to design a modern car, then what it does is you usually use a clay model to show the different things that you want to do with a car. But in our case, we're taking this design process and put it into virtual reality. So we take models from car designers, for example, directly straight from the CAD data, and then put that into virtual reality. And just gonna load this up. All right, something seems to be wrong, so I'm just going to skip to my next demo here for just a second. So the other thing that we've set out to do is essentially we're trying to simplify the way that. Oh, what's happening now? There we go. My car's here. Took a while, but we're finally there. So I can still show you this car design in process. So what you have here is a car model from McLaren coming straight from CAD data. So this car, photorealistically rendered in front of me, is taken directly from a program that designers use. And what I can do now is I can actually take this car apart. So I can use the grab tool and then literally take the door off, for example. And this way I have the ability to also move closer to the object itself. This way I can look close at the model that's been designed and then even do things like taking the hood off, for example. Obviously, this is a sports car, so the actual motor is in the back. And so standing here, I can take a close look at all the different things that are in this car, even down to the tiniest screws. And this helps designers to make their design easier and quicker. And then because these are millions of polygons, there's obviously lots of performance going on in the background. So another thing that I want to show you is this way. The next thing I want to show you is from a product design like a car, you can also do crazy architectural visualizations. So what I'm going to load up now is what we call the holo table. So if you design a building, you've probably seen this a couple of times. If architects are designing a building, they're standing in front of a table like this. And then what they wanna see on here is obviously the model that they're building of this building that's going to be designed. And so once again, I'm loading up a lot of data here, so it will take a while until I can see the building in front of me.
Dominic, that's really amazing. I mean, it completely immerses you in a completely different world.
And this is literally me standing in front of this model that otherwise people would have to build detail by detail by detail. And what I can do here in this view is I can, for example, disable the windows or the outside of this building and look inside of the building. So this gives me the ability to see this at a smaller scale, and then what I can also do is I can place a teleport target. So I'm just going to place a teleport target here. So this little guy here is now my teleport target. And what I can do now is I can go to full size. It will load up. And now I'm standing inside of this building, exactly where I placed this target before. And in here, in this architectural visualization, I can then walk around and see exactly where the future workers of this building will be sitting at. And this is the great thing about virtual reality. You can visualize anything from architecture to car design to any type of product design to immersive worlds that you otherwise could never do.
That was great. He completely immersed into a different world. Thank you so much. Amazing, amazing. Dr. Mazen, I want to move to you, and I want to ask you, so imagine, from what we've seen just now, imagine training surgeons and pilots for the perfect technique, visiting places remotely, exploring outer space, allowing the disabled to do what the body able takes for granted. This only to name the least. So these platforms offer a chance to disrupt the traditional methods. So from your industry, what disruptions have they made, and is it VR or AR?
Okay, thank you so much, Shada, and thank you, Dominique. That was very insightful, I would say. Basically, I'm going to start with a statistic first. I think the numbers will make a huge surprise here. According to bigthing.com, they've cited a research consultancy called Industry ARC, ARC. So if you go to bigthing.com and just type in VR, AR in healthcare. VR, AR in healthcare is predicted to reach in 2020 no less than $2.54 billion. That's just the potential of VR, AR within the next 2 years in healthcare. I think if you look at multi-industries, across all industries, the number is definitely going to be bigger. Specifically in the automobile industry, if you're talking about the construction industry. And I want to leverage the last example that Dominique showed, trying to visualize the future architecture. I know that some healthcare organizations in the US are utilizing this when they're designing their sustainable future buildings, where they look at actually virtual reality models to try and see how they can design the perfect hospitals from different utilization of rooms and device allocations. But coming back to your point, Shada, the potential for VR AR is hugely immense in the concept of training in healthcare, medical training or medical education. We are about to start developing our medical education and research strategy for Dubai Health Authority for next 10 years. One of the biggest elements of this research strategy or medical education and research strategy is to look at potential emerging technologies, VR and AR specifically. You can cut the cost of training, you can actually cut the time by more than 40 or 50%. That you can train medical students. So there's a lot of potential. And don't forget the concept of risk averse. Having surgeries done or rehabilitation procedures being done in a VR environment or even an augmented reality environment. You can reduce the amount of risk, whether it's imposed on the patient or by training medical students by having them being completely immersed in such environment. One of the areas that VR and AR has been potentially successful, mental health, phobia control, where they can actually do the patient education prior to surgeries or prior to therapies, whether it's any of the scopies, endoscopy or robotic surgery, or you can actually literally create the environment for the patient to see how to calm the patient first of all, and then go through either mental health treatments or surgical procedures.
Fascinating. I want to come back to you and I want to ask you about challenges and adoption in terms of in the region, and perhaps you can share some success stories with that. But before that, I want to move to Rain and I want to ask her, I've read online, this is a beautiful statement from Aeon that says, Aeon believes that knowledge is a human right and has made it their goal to make knowledge available, affordable, and accessible for every human on the planet. To do this, they've created the next generation of virtual and augmented reality tools to increase the world's knowledge transfer capabilities. Can you please elaborate on that?
Well, we have a few initiatives initiatives, one of which is Classroom 3.0, which is to, closer?
Yeah.
Classroom 3.0 is about the next iteration of the classroom. We call it the flipped classroom, and it's like you said, we believe that education is a human right, and virtual reality or technology is a great equalizer because there's a lower threshold to get the information, and it allows students that aren't able to go to certain schools, or even because of a physical disability or location, it allows them to be physically in the classroom. The teacher can see them. They can raise their hand even if they're not in the classroom. As well, with our AR Assist solution, we are able to help remote training, and with AR you can overlay information on the devices, so you don't have to go into a VR environment, but you're actually in your own training facility or environment, and you get you either get a remote engineer that overlays the information for you onto the devices, or you get remote assistance. So those are some of the solutions that Ion works on.
That's amazing. So I see that's complete transformation of the experience.
Yeah, we work with a lot of university partners as well, because they believe that the classroom is going digital or to VR and AR solutions.
Wonderful. And Karim, so the majority see augmented reality as an everyday help for the common person, making better decisions about food, transportation, people, whereas virtual reality is more of an entertainment activity, whether it's gaming or entertainment for great storytelling or watching a great movie from different angles. So what's your view around these platforms, and how is it being utilized at GigaWorks?
Okay, first of all, I want to talk about what Dominic showed you. It's just a glimpse of virtual reality. You really have to try it with the headset because it's a completely and totally different experience than watching it on a screen. So basically this is an immersive technology, immersive virtual reality, and the idea is to completely disconnect you from the real world and put you in a non-existent, non-physical world. So once you put the headset, you will really have the feeling that you were in that office or you were standing next to the car, unlike seeing it on a screen. So please, if you have time, have a look at it. Now, we've heard about augmented reality before virtual reality, and then virtual reality came in very quickly. In my opinion, augmented reality is only at maybe 5% from what its capacity is, but virtual reality went faster, and I'm sure that augmented reality is gonna come back stronger. Apple is currently working on AR devices, AR mobile phone, so the future is really between AR and VR, and this is, today we call it mixed reality. So augmented reality, virtual reality, and the new thing you're gonna hear is mixed reality. In my opinion, this is a good combination because virtual reality will provide you scenery. In our case, we do virtual reality from motion pictures. So instead of having a computer 3D generated office, we can film that office and put you inside in a real world. Augmented reality will give you additional information. It started for entertainment. Of course, when they built the Oculus Rift that Dominic talked about it was mainly for playing games. But people who used to know the technology of 360 photography and 360 photos, they saw a potential, and they saw that they can also view 360 videos on that device. So back in 2013, when we started exploring this technology, and we started filming 360 video, and we used lots of cameras and stitching, and of course we use supercomputers, we use Nvidia graphic cards because we really need powerful graphic cards for the rendering. And this is how it started in the entertainment business, and we've seen lots of activities related. But then very quickly, virtual reality went into different other activities. in the medical field. We have lots of examples in the education, in the training. Today in HR, we are using it. So it has really a very wide range of applications.
Can I comment on that?
Yes, sorry, you want to comment?
So there was a recent Capgemini report that did research on the adoption of AR and VR, and actually most enterprises find AR more beneficial than VR because you get more information through AR, but you still are in your own environment. You don't have to be taken into a virtual world. So the real and the virtual kind of coexist and merge, similar to mixed reality. And so while virtual reality is more used right now, I believe it'll phase out as AR becomes more implemented or more used.
Interesting. Dominic, so do you think virtual reality is where it should be?
I just want to start a discussion about the VR phasing out. It's one of those funny discussions back in like 2013, 2014, 2015. Everybody was saying VR is going to replace everything else. And I'm always very skeptic about, like, I'm a huge virtual reality enthusiast. I really think you should try it to really understand what the technology offers, or what the potential of this technology is. But I would never say that it will replace books, it will never replace other media, but it will be another media that people will use on top of everything else. So I don't believe that virtual reality will be going away completely. I'm thinking specific experiences will benefit a lot from virtual reality, and specific experiences will benefit even more from augmented reality. So we're on the same track.
Yeah,
here.
no, I was talking more about enterprise solutions more than the consumer, or in general, in terms of what enterprises and companies find in terms of finding like training solutions.
Yeah.
They find AR more helpful. I think
So there's
45% of
yes.
companies are implementing AR, while 36% are implementing VR.
So there's still different usage in terms of industries and
Definitely,
disciplines
yeah.
for each. Again, back to the comment, because
Yeah.
I have a comment here from our famous Mark Zuckerberg that he believes heavily in virtual reality, and he doesn't feel that it is where it should be today, and he wants to invest $3 billion in making sure that technology should be where it should be. And he thinks that it will go mainstream in 2022. So I wanted to get your feedback on this. And again, is virtual reality where it should be today?
That's probably the same asking somebody in the 1930s whether cinema is where it needs to be. People in the 1930s could not have imagined what cinema would turn into. And I think we're at the same kind of timeline with virtual reality. The devices that we have right now, they really give you a very good experience, and they show you what the technology can do. But VR in 30 years, 50 years, 100 years down the line will completely different from what we have today. So in that regard, yes, he's right. Virtual reality isn't where it needs to be. But then 50 years down the line, people will also want more. They will want more immersion, they will want higher frame rates, they will want smaller devices. So technology really, there's no end game for a technology like that. Even smartphones of today that are really, really high end, there's still lots of room to expand. So yeah, I would agree with him that
So the potential is
the potential is huge. But me, I'm like I said, my first VR experience was in 2012. It was literally a piece of technology held together with duct tape. Compared to what we have now, 6 years later, the step is insane. So even if VR still has room to grow, it already made a huge leap in those last 5-6 years.
Amazing. So my next question is really targeted to Dr. Mazen and to Karim. And so looking at these platforms, I mean, because you really have more hands-on experience with the customer experience and the behavior, offering more personalized marketing channels, changing life as you know it. Do you want to share, both of you, like some success stories of how they really changed the customer experience or the life of individuals?
I have plenty.
Okay, so I'll start maybe, if I may, Kareem, just with the, if you're talking about success stories implementing VR, AR in healthcare, for example, in the healthcare system in Dubai, is still in the probing phase. They're still probing the technology. As I said, one of the areas, since I'm working in the public sector, is trying to understand the challenges. Would it be a regulated technology? What sort of regulations do we need to bring in? How much data is available there for such technology to be rendered or designed? Is the broadband width, the broad bandwidth, is it kind of enough for such technology to have a sustainable live stream on, for example? I was visiting a month ago Children's Hospital. It's called Mercy Children's Hospital in Kansas City. Very specialized, what we call tertiary hospital. They look at the most complex of diagnoses in young patients, kids from the age of, let's say, 0.1 months, just before delivery, all the way to, I think, 16 years old. And they actually look at the use of virtual reality in easing, for example, some of the fear that the patient has. So they utilized VR, AR in enhancing the patient experience. As far as our strategy, the innovation strategy that we have implemented in Dubai beginning of 2018, we are still looking at pilots and case studies to try and bring in virtual reality or augmented reality per se. Kareem.
Yeah, first I just want to comment on your previous question about Mark Zuckerberg. Definitely I agree with him, and the guy has a vision, and when he invested in the $2 billion in a device that was with duct tape from a 20-year-old kid, as they used to call him, from a startup company who did not yet have a production product, definitely the guy has a vision and is going to take it to the next level. There's a new product coming soon. It's called Facebook Spaces. I don't know if anybody heard about it, but you can Google it and you can see the future of Facebook. Just a small example, we're all sitting, we flew from all over the world to come here for this forum, and you also as attendees. Imagine if you're sitting at home, putting your headset, and you have us in front of you, sitting and talking without anybody moving. So this is Facebook Spaces. This is the future of social media, the future of socializing. Don't be afraid of it. You need to know what's coming ahead. So about case studies and projects, we've done a lot of entertainment. We entertained a lot of people. One of the example that I wanna talk about it is the Dubai International Film Festival, the red carpet opening ceremony. Usually this is an event that is restricted to VIP invitation, and they have a very limited and restricted number of invitations. So we came up with an idea to live stream the event in 360 video, and people who had a headset at home had the feeling as if they were standing effectively on the red carpet. We brought in a presenter who interviewed the stars, and the people were just like literally sitting next to the stars. So this is an experience that a lot of people cannot have it, even the people who were invited. It's still available online, it's a pre-recorded now, and you can view it. In the healthcare also we have lots of projects that we work on. Now there is a new regulation that in surgery rooms, because before it used to be allowed, I witnessed the delivery of my first son, but now it's not allowed to be in the operation room when it's a C-section. I think they changed this in Dubai lately. So our idea was also to implement virtual reality technology in those surgery rooms and give the chance to the parents to experience it without being physically inside the room. So we're working on something like that right now in Dubai. We also work with a paraplegic person. So they're sitting in the bed and they cannot move their lower parts. So we put them a VR a pre-recorded with another person, of course, wearing the same clothes. So he doesn't see the face, he just sees the body, and he feels that this is his body. And then when the nurse comes and start doing the exercise of physiotherapy, for example, maybe he can lift his leg 5 centimeters, but in the VR he can see it 30 centimeters. And this will definitely at some point trigger the nerves and give him the motor. These are case studies that we are also working on it. Some of them are effective, but it's definitely better than nothing.
I think you mentioned Facebook Space app, which is an app for friends to get together in a virtual reality room, and I think also Google's Daydream platform, which they get together and watch videos in a virtual room. So these major players are investing heavily in that technology. So like you mentioned earlier, if this kid initially when he had an idea, so we should take him seriously.
Yeah, definitely, and we should also give credit to Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg, because when he invested those $2 billion, if you go on Google at that time, there was no keyword about virtual reality. Microsoft did not say a word at that time about virtual reality. A lot of people did not believe in the technology, and these were our challenges. When we started offering this to our clients, they tell us, okay, it's a gimmick, it's gonna die like the 3D, like the things. But in 2016 and 17, we've seen that a lot of people are really after it. And now, if you go to any exhibitions, you have AR, VR, it's everywhere. You cannot do a technology event without talking about these things. So we have to give him credits also about it.
Yes. Again, because the way we kind of created this session, we want to talk in terms of the current context, what's happening now in terms of these platforms. And then the next step, I want to see what is the future, what's next. Just before going to the future, I just want you to comment on this, if you may please. Some may say for augmented reality and virtual reality to get mass market appeal, they need to fit into our world as a whole. How do you see them completing each other, if they are completing each other?
May I ask
Please,
a question?
yeah.
I would like to ask the audience actually, how many of you have a gaming console at home? Xbox? Put your hands up if you have an Xbox or a Sony PlayStation. Right. Leave your hand up if you're using a VR, AR extension to that gaming console. Right, so it seems like to me there's a reality already that invaded your homes. Right, so how far, from a healthcare perspective, put your hand up if you went to a hospital in Jordan or anywhere in the world that has used AR, VR, even in the reception area. Have you seen it? Nobody? Anybody? In a hospital environment. So you've seen it, right? So you have it at home. You've probably seen some of the gadgets that they've released for Sony PlayStation or Xbox to give you that extra feeling when you play games. So Mike, maybe to answer your question, how realistic is it for this technology and this huge innovation to invade your next door hospital or clinic? I think that's where I presume it's just a matter of time, because at some point we are moving in healthcare to outcome-driven reimbursement model or payment model, where you look at the outcome rather than the services you render or the services you administer. So based on that, we're probably going to try and see how we can cut costs, whether you cut costs in the education process for medical physicians and clinicians, or cutting costs by introducing certain technologies in the patient journey, such as AR, VR, to try and give that better patient satisfaction rating.
But if we talk about healthcare specifically, so are we ready? Are we ready for that move? In terms of we're looking at everything, we're not just looking at the technology, we're looking at the structure, at the process, at the culture, the people, the adoption.
Right. If you're asking us, are we ready to get married to such technology? I believe we have somewhat of a viable infrastructure in place. So if you ask about, for example, the GCC countries, Jordan, perhaps Egypt, yes, perhaps there are some viable infrastructure, some reasonable telecom infrastructure that allows for a fast internet connection and data storage. because these are the elements that you probably need from a resources infrastructure. If you're looking at skills and competency infrastructure, we have a reasonable, educated workforce that would allow for such technologies to be adopted, AR, VR. So I believe yes, but
Yes,
it depends on the maturity
it
level.
depends, yes.
Correct.
That's a good answer, it
But
depends.
this cost saving is actually taking place now. So for those in the audience who think, how is this gaming headset gonna change healthcare? One example is how you're actually saving costs is sedatives. So one example that I always love to bring up is the example of Jose Luis Gonzalez. He's a medical professor in Mexico. And what he does is he takes his medical profession into places in the rural land where there are no clinics available. He takes a VR headset, and during this open surgery that is taking place, he distracts his patients with the virtual reality experience. So instead of the patients watching the surgery being done, they are roaming the ruins of Machu Picchu, for example. And this way, the surgeon distracts his patients, and he actually saves on sedatives. So this professor guesses that he can save about 25% on sedatives. So he's actually putting less sedatives into the patient's body, which is both cost saving and better for this patient's health. And then another great example is phobia training. So if you take a look at the numbers, over 70% of the population have fear of something. Fear of heights, fear of public speaking, fear of closed spaces, and so on and so forth. And you can do this phobia training that you would usually do with a doctor. You can do the same thing in virtual reality and save about half of the costs of that treatment. So you're already saving costs today with virtual reality.
Let's go into the future a little bit. So the question is, some say the future is of mixed reality, and I think this is something that's we're seeing this already. So the integration of the virtual and physical world belongs to the smell, taste, and touch. Kareem, if you want to comment.
Yeah, this already we're working on it. We started with the fourth dimension, which is like Dominic was demonstrating now the room. So if I don't know if you noticed that he was clicking to move to another room. So the future of this technology is to be able to walk, but if he walks, he has a limited boundary. So this kind of fourth dimension, like a treadmill, imagine you're on a treadmill and then you start walking, but you're gonna see yourself walking. Because now Dominic, he could not walk physically because it has a space limitation. So these are the fourth dimension. We're talking about the ninth dimension, so adding sound, adding like air, adding like sand, heat to simulate the sun, and this kind of, it's like the 4DX or the 9D cinema, but in virtual reality. So this is being widely developed right now.
I think people got a bit scared after Google Glass failed because they thought, oh, the consumer is going to drive this technology. But I think once the consumer has more interaction in terms of enterprise solutions and they see it integrated in other parts of life, it will get there. But I think the wearable technology isn't quite there yet. And so you were saying about computer games or cinema. We needed the graphics to get there. We needed the actual the cameras to get there before we got better quality. And the same is for this technology. The actual hardware isn't quite where it should be, and it will get there. And we'll after that see it more integrated in everyday life for consumers. The price points need to go down. There are a lot of factors before it becomes more readily adopted.
We still have this bulky hardware in the future. How do you envision that changing?
Looking a bit into the future, what's definitely going to happen, and this is not crystal ball knowledge, it's just a general trend in technology, is things become smaller. So if one of you still remembers the first kind of mobile phones, it was literally a suitcase that you were carrying around with a phone. And that was the first mobile phone. They became smaller and smaller and smaller. Then somebody slapped a display on it, so they became a little bigger again. Then they got smaller again. So essentially, what's happening is with lots of technologies is they just become smaller and smaller just because of the manufacturing process and of advancements in technology. What I can 100% say is that VR headsets in the future will definitely become smaller, easier to wear, and then
more affordable.
Sorry?
More affordable.
And more affordable, of course, yeah. So once it's just economy of scale, really. Once more people are interested in a technology, you can then produce them at a higher scale, reducing the costs. So that's also something that it's literally a given for all the technologies that have come around the last 20, 30, 50 years. And then another thing that will happen is it's definitely going to be higher resolution. So if you are trying one of these virtual reality headsets right now, you can still see like the pixel screen, the individual pixels on the screen. Because imagine you have a smartphone display, but it's blown up in your whole face, so it stretches across your whole field of vision. That obviously gives you the ability to see the tiny pixels on that screen, and that will all go away in the future because again, technology becomes smaller. It's able to drive more pixels in a smaller space, so those are all a given. And then looking into the future, one thing that definitely a lot of people are looking forward to is wireless. So you've seen me, I was tethered with a wire to the PC. That's a thing that's already starting to become obsolete. So these headsets are becoming more and more wireless and thus easier to use. You can use them on the bus, you can use them on the train, on the plane, but you can also go home and then have these high fidelity PC driven experiences with lots of hardware in the background that actually drives that experience. So yeah, it's going to be lighter, more affordable,
so
and then higher fidelity.
Okay, so we probably have less than a minute. So maybe we can take 2 questions from the audience.
Thank you for your talk. We are actually seeing Nvidia in our Tesla car. So real reality out the door, out the car.
Do we have a microphone, please?
And it's actually showing inside, filtering out the noise. And nice to have you actually in Jordan. And Nvidia is already, very welcome in our life and in our cars, in our roads. And the way we can see, Nvidia actually, or virtual reality in general, playing out is not really just for games. It's really in actually cutting on accidents and figuring, like lowering costs on the roads, and like taking serious statistics out of, if there are, like congestions somewhere, and giving users or riders the ability to, to see the world in a quieter, as a quieter place, and have actual interactions between cars as well. So if you implement virtual reality in a real reality, that's the trick. I mean, you are going to get a lot of business just, pushing in that area. And if you add to that some open AI, which actually Nvidia is pioneering, this means that the future is going to be very bright when you have so much power available to you, which is like hundreds and hundreds of supercomputers just on a single chip, which you can program and that can understand a huge number of variables and dimensions and, with all these factors that contribute to your safety on the road. This means that we reached a point in technology where actually, we are seeing progress. And I think that's cool. And thank you for coming to Jordan. It was very inspiring to see you play. And I would love to see you, ride a Tesla car, for example, the performance car with Model 3 or the Roadster instead of the McLaren, because the McLaren, it doesn't have even touch. They cannot touch. It doesn't have a screen touch. So please step in the future and use your own technology in your own Tesla car. Thank you very much, sir.
Unfortunately, we reached the end of our session, so we don't have time for questions, but our panelists are here today and tomorrow, so please feel free to come up and ask them any questions. Thank you so much. This was very, very insightful. I really enjoyed our discussion. and we look forward to seeing you here again. Enjoy Jordan. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shatha, and all the panelists as well. Thank you so much.